is, and the credit crunch. The financial industry is now being bombarded by a rash of supposedly overlapping regulations and directives. I mean, how is the industry dealing with this level of change at the moment?
Well, I think the industry will deal with it in slightly different ways depending on the firm that is involved. From our perspective, we're trying to look at things proactively to say, okay, differing regulations, how might they overlap? Trying to look at it from the point of view that says what potentially could be the costs of making all these changes, and indeed how does that then overlap over our fiscal budgetary process. So when we come to that process each year, we've got a fairly good idea what we're trying to do over the next 1, 2 or 3 years from a cost perspective, but also in terms of how they actually overlap with each other and how we might want to do something with the opportunities of those regulations.
Some of the sessions this morning talking about regulations hitting the buy side talked about how expensive some of these regulations are. I mean, how is the industry dealing with sort of budgets in the risk department and the operations department when having to deal with these regulations?
Well, every firm is going to be different. Certainly from our perspective, what we're trying to do is to say be proactive around those costs. So we'll start looking at regulations when they come along, perhaps at the point of consultation process, get a good idea perhaps of what it is at that point. We may not be able to firm that up until we start going through the various level 1 and level 2 papers, and once we start to see that, we'll be able to firm up on those costs. But at least we can then give our senior management team a heads up to say we think that something might cost X over a period of time, so at least that way when we go into the fiscal process we're actually able to give at worst case a good guesstimate, but at best case probably a slightly better idea of what those costs might be.
So I mean, it's almost as if you're looking at budgets when you're just looking at the headlines of these regulations before you've even written the consultation paper.
We'll probably wait until the consultation papers come out, because really until you do that you really can't be too specific. But once the consultation papers come out, we'll start to get at least an idea of perhaps what might be coming along, and then we start to get an idea of potentially the different groups that will impact within the company, whether it be customer services, whether it be the fund management team, and so on and so forth. At least that way we can have some sensible discussions with each of them to try to figure out what the change might be. But I stress at that point it'll be very, very high level.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.